For the mountains shall depart, and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee. That's Isaiah 54, verse 10. And honestly, that seemed apt after reading this novel. This is a 2000 novel, of course, by Gene Wolfe. And this is a rougher intro than normal, but this book has me feeling very rugged afterwards. I'm not sure what to think of it. It feels like a big piece of the puzzle, but I've gotten more answers, I guess, than I had before, but I have a lot more questions now, which is pretty typical of Gene Wolfe. So anyways, actually, I just finished the third book yesterday, so I now have more thoughts for the whole series, but I'll finish that, or share those with my review for the third book. So this is actually book 2 in Book of the Short Sun. It takes place after On Blue's Waters. In some sense, it takes place after On Blue's Waters. The timeline's not quite sequential. Parts of it are, but not quite there. Horn has more paper, or our narrator, at least, has more paper, and writes from a walled settlement. His only companion is Oreb, or something called Oreb, maybe not the same Oreb as Longsung, and they're in search for Silk, of course. Oreb thinks our narrator is Silk. In reality, the identity of our narrator is not that straightforward, and nor is the story. This is Gene Wolfe, of course. Their narrator uses the name Cantic at certain parts, for example. He is in Blanco, a free town of sorts, Duco Rogio, and Saldo is aggressive with his armies, and supposedly Silk is hiring mercenaries up in Gaon, where Horn was Rajan at the start of Book 1, so we know our writer is Rajan, but don't know what's going on there. The word strago for a bewitcher is very Italian-sounding. There is also dervis, though, an archaic version of the Islamic term dervish. This is, of course, blue. There is a parallel story set in green. It's rather mysterious, to say the least. Near the start, there are stories being told by several characters. Stories within stories is pretty typical Wolfe. Also, the idea of memory and its shiftiness and failing, not as obvious as a New Sun, but here, or definitely here. Just gotta pay attention. And there are things like accusations and being wrong, where fictional characters normally aren't. Also, factions, who is being fought against who, and who is bad, and who is who, and where are they. There are repetitive conversations, fluctuations in authority, also metaphysical ideas that come off as Christian, but not overtly. The idea of seraphim and the Humai is an interesting one, but there's also ideas here similar to the parts in the Fifth Head of Cerberus about shape and humanity and function, and there's also dark reflections of that. There's no Babby, sadly, actually, really, though there is mention of Nessus, and there is a certain Red Sun whirl, if you would. Hoof and Hyde compile the story of the narrator, or most of it anyways, and the narrative in green seems incomplete, and the book ends abruptly. Overall, it's a very thought-provoking and a weird tale of war and humanity, and so much else. It's kind of confusing, and I have a hard time sharing my thoughts. The nice thing about Book of the New Sun is that I could share my thoughts after each book. There is a rather straightforward story, in a sense, going on. I feel like Long Sun and Short Sun are much harder to understand. But is this the end? We're getting there, but we're also getting near the beginning. So I have a couple quotes to share, but let me share those here right now. When a child is being mistreated, it's the business of anyone who happens along to stop it. There's beasts in every town. Only cowards strike at the dead. The dead cannot defend themselves. Only remember that the dead can avenge themselves. All stories are false, and none are false than those that are supposed to be true. The lie adds a second layer of falsity. I don't understand this, Father. It's very likely no one does. What we are, they must become. And shall take that onward.